Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates, and we are glad you decided to tune in today because we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff having to do with your retirement. Mark, it is good to be back with you.
Ron, always happy to be here.
This is Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and we have, as I said, some very interesting conversations coming up here in just a moment, and Mark's going to lay some pearls of wisdom down for you. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. That is 520-333-7601. Call or send a text to that number. Make sure you just leave your first and last name if you're texting so that Mark's office can get back with you, and then you can arrange a time to come in and have a conversation. No obligation, no cost conversation. 520-333-7601 is that number one more time. Wherever you are in the Tucson area, thanks for being with us. Mark, let's talk about cutting corners. Looking at ways that some people try to cut corners in their retirement planning. I know you have people do this all the time. They may cut corners in the interest of time or maybe just laziness on the part of some folks. Taking too much risk to try and make up for not saving enough money in earlier years is certainly a way of cutting corners, but you can really get yourself in a lot of trouble if you do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the excuses would probably be procrastination. I think most people just procrastinate and keep putting it off another year. Certainly people this year probably say, well, we'll worry about it in January, and then the year comes and goes. But yeah, taking too much risk, you should always take the amount of risk that's appropriate, that you're comfortable taking, but that also should keep you on track for your goals. And that's one of the main reasons why we do financial planning, is to make sure that, we assess where you are today, understand where you want to be tomorrow, and are you doing everything that you possibly can to get there from point A to point B, to make sure that you're doing all the right things. So, taking too much risk is a big one, especially since we've seen the market. It's been a little bit of a hiccup since, the end of January, but we've basically seen the markets go straight up, if you don't count that, since 2009. So a lot of people are, greed has come back into play and those sorts of things, and that's only natural.
Never getting legal documents in place, that's usually a matter of procrastination as well. You got to do it, but you just kind of don't get around to it, and there can be some really heavy consequences if that is the case with you.
Yeah, the estate planning is a key part of what we do and what we help with. At a minimum, you should have wills. In some cases, people need trusts, living trusts, those sorts of things. The other important thing is to make sure you have your beneficiary designations designated correctly. So if something happens to you, and those supersede wills and trusts and those sorts of things, but making sure the money is going to be going to people that you care about, or the people you want it to go to. People, are born and die and those sorts of things. So you need to adjust those occasionally as well.
I know that you've probably seen some folks when they brought their information in and you found out that they actually had left a certain amount of money in their will to an ex-wife that they had not been with for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I've said that story before. I don't know if you remember that one, but I had a guy come in actually from the radio. This is a couple years ago, and we were sitting there, and he had mentioned to me that he was divorced and had a son. Yeah. And so I was looking at his brokerage statement, and right on the front there, it had a female name. And I look at it, and I said, who's this? I assume this isn't your son. Yeah. No, that's my ex-wife. I said, well, if something were to happen to you, this is where the money goes. Because, well, I told my broker that, I wanted that changed years ago. I said, well, you're getting a monthly statement with that information right on the front. And so it was never changed. So you need to do that.
Wow, that can be a scary prospect.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that his current wife would not be too happy about that either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the next one here on my list is not getting organized. And that kind of goes along with what we just talked about, the legal documentation and all of that. But there are folks out there who just aren't organized at all with all of this stuff in their portfolios.
Yeah, and that's one of the important things that we do. And I can tell you, going through this process when people come in, because we look at everything. We're not just looking at your investment statements, but we're looking at your tax returns. We're looking at your, pay stubs if you're still working, Social Security, pensions, those sorts of things. We look at everything. And one of the nice things is we really help you get organized. Whether you decide to work with us or not is not important. But the key is we're getting all your information together. And for a lot of people, they've never had all that information consolidated or looked at as a whole. but that really does help people get organized by, part of our process by requesting all this documentation that we're going to look at to give them the right advice.
We certainly appreciate your being with us today on Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman, of course, has been doing this show for quite a while. And Mark is the principal at Silverman and Associates, serving Tucson and all of southern Arizona. Go to the website, if you like, savingwithsilverman.com. That is savingwithsilverman.com, and you can find out all about Mark and what he does to help folks. A lot of people out there ignore details about certain investments, and I would go so far as to say, and I know this is really commonplace, a lot of folks don't know the details of certain investments. They have no idea how much risk they have, for example.
Risk, or they just don't understand how the investment works. I have people that'll come in and they've, maybe been working with somebody a long time, but they'll come in and maybe they'll have REITs, which is real estate investment trusts. Maybe they'll have annuities, certain things that they have that they purchased, and they really don't truly understand them. And I don't even know if they ever did. Sometimes maybe they did it initially when they first purchased it. Maybe they've forgotten. But a lot of times that wasn't really explained to them. The things that they remembered were the pros. The cons didn't seem to stand out, or maybe they weren't. Again, I wasn't in that conversation, but maybe those weren't explained in full detail. But understanding exactly what you have and what the pros and cons of each investment is, so you can determine if that investment is still suitable for your situation. Because as we know, Ron, people's situations change.
We're talking about cutting corners on Saving with Silverman today. And the last one I wanted to bring up here, Mark, is one that's just really kind of uncomfortable to talk about. Most people don't even like to think about it, and so they kind of push it off. Avoiding the discussion about long-term care can be a very costly proposition as well.
Well, it's an important discussion to have. And like I said, we do comprehensive holistic financial planning. So a lot of the conversations that we have, not all of them are pleasant conversations, but they're real conversations that need to be had. So understanding, what the burden might be if you or your spouse needs long-term care. And if you make the decision that you don't want to do anything about it and you're just going to, self-insure, as we call it, means, pay out of pocket, that's fine. But you need to understand what those costs might look like and where that money's going to come from and what impact that might have on the rest of your portfolio and the rest of your assets. So it's understanding those sorts of things. And a lot of people don't like to talk about those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it's important to understand, at least have some type of strategy that if this were to happen, what are you going to do about it? At least understand what your options are.
And as many times we've talked about this, about 70% of us, we're living longer these days, about 70% of us will need long-term care of some kind during our lifetime.
Absolutely. And the costs keep going up. So, it's, here in Tucson, a private room for a nursing home is about $100,000 a year as of last year. That's a 2017 number. I don't have a 2018 number. But, if you figure the average stay is, 3 or 4 years, that's $300,000 to $400,000 you need somewhere.
Yeah, and you certainly need to think about that eventuality. Mark Silverman, of course, is your financial founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates, and would love to talk to you. And Mark, for the folks who make the phone call or send a text to you and arrange a time to come in and have a conversation, what do you have to offer them?
Well, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or if you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process that we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. And I'll repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone, however our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. You can call or text. Again, that number is 520-333-7601. It's all about arranging a time to come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman face-to-face. He's not going to put you off on anybody else. You're going to come in and have a conversation with Mark. 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And wherever you are in the southern Arizona area, go ahead and make that phone call or send that text. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. I'm Rod Stutz. There's more on the way.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years you lovingly sacrificed for your family, now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman with the one and only Mark Silverman, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Mark's number is 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Let's talk about late bloomers on today's show. Mark, would you consider yourself a late bloomer?
Maybe in some respects. In some respects, I'm late, and some I'm maybe early.
Maybe some folks out there are close to retirement and think they don't have nearly enough money saved, and so what they do is try and make up for lost time. Let's talk about some reasons that the news might not be as bad as those people think. Number one, can you explain what catch-up contributions are all about?
Sure. What they do is they're allowing you to save more money into certain types of accounts. So whether you have a traditional IRA or Roth IRA, if you're over the age of 50 and above, you can put an extra $1,000 per year away towards that account. And then if you have a 401k, the catch-up provision is actually $6,000. So you can put an additional $6,000 into your account for that year as an employee contribution over the age of 50. So,
okay, that is one thing that a lot of people might want to consider, but you need to do it, you need to catch up in a safe way, not to put everything at risk.
And I can tell you, those amounts help, but for a lot of people, if you haven't started and you're waiting till 50 to start, those aren't going to catch you up.
Yeah. Well, here's one that really a lot of folks may not have thought about it. How about kids coming off the payroll? Your expenses are not going to be as high as they were when they were at home or when you were helping them out in some way. And that's a way you can catch up sort of at the last minute as well.
Certainly. I mean, if you're an empty nester recently, or maybe your kids have just recently moved out or they're out of college, because obviously those costs, whether you pay that or not, that's another story. But the other thing too is, even if kids are out on their own, you still sometimes tend to help them. And so it's just, understanding that the kids are going to, if you're doing it right, are going to be financially independent at some point, which would allow you to put more money away for your retirement.
How about disappearing debt, like getting cars paid off and that sort of thing?
Yeah, getting cars paid off, but cars don't last forever. So a lot of times, if you're paying cash for a car, that's a different story. But if you are, taking out car loans, unfortunately, cars don't last forever. So those kind of sometimes can go away and sometimes can come back. But a lot of times it could be like a mortgage. Maybe if you're planning on paying off the mortgage before you retire, some of our clients do that, some of them don't. It's really about creating the cash flow. So I can make the argument either way. but it's nice not to have a mortgage in retirement. I can certainly tell you that, but for a lot of people, that's not possible.
A lot of folks, after the kids are grown and gone, decide to downsize. They don't need the space that they needed at one time. And that's a way that your expenses may be a lot lower and you can help catch up as well.
That's true. If you have a large home and the kids are now you're empty nesters, you don't need that size house and the maintenance that comes along with that and the upkeep. Maybe you take the equity out of there and you purchase something smaller that's easier to maintain, less expensive to maintain, et cetera. So that can help as well.
Then there is a matter of working past retirement. You may retire from your regular job that you work full time, but you may decide that you want to stay in the workforce in one way or another, and that's another way to earn income late in life.
Yeah. What we call it is, a work optional lifestyle, working because you want to, not because you have to. And certainly that can help with your numbers if you're working. And what that does is two things. One, it occupies your time. And it's also, if it creates some income, that helps as well. Because if you're not earning income or if you're not working, you might be out spending money. So that is a nice thing to do. And some people, do something differently completely when they retire. Some people may just scale back. We work with a lot of Raytheon people that may come back as just a consultant or just, shorter hours, those sorts of things. And that could be true in any career. But, having different options, or maybe you want to do something entirely different. So it's just having those options and seeing what those numbers look like. But what we try to focus on is creating what we call work optional lifestyle, working because you want to, again, not because you have to.
Mark, I know a lot of folks out there listening to the show today would love to come in and sit down and have a conversation with you. And we stress this is no obligation. It's not going to cost anything. Just come in, get acquainted, and get to know you a little bit better. And I know a lot of folks know you a lot from listening to the radio show, but if they'd like to come in and have a conversation with you about their specific retirement plans, what do you have to offer those people?
Well, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or already working with someone, this is your chance to go through this process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone, however, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to get in touch with Mark. 520-333-7601. As he says, making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life, so why not go ahead and make that phone call or send that text right now. Don't delay. 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Mark is a certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And if you don't know Mark, well, then you're missing out. Come on in, have a conversation. You can listen to the radio show every week, of course, but it's necessary in order to get specific planning done for specifically your future. Then you need to come in and have that conversation. 520-333-7601. This runs Tuts along with Mark Silverman, and there's more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
This is Saving with Silverman. Appreciate your listening today. I'm Ron Stutz, and I get a chance to hang out for a while here with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. You can go to the website, check him out, savingwithsilverman.com, savingwithsilverman.com. But as you know, we always put a lot of emphasis on the phone number because you can call that number and eventually arrange a time to come in and have a conversation. You don't have to talk to anybody today. Just leave a message, or if you're sending a text, make sure you put your first and last name there so that Mark and his folks can get back in touch with you first part of the week, and then you can arrange a time to come in and have that conversation. 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. One more time, write it down, put it in your phone, whatever you need to do to remember it. 520-333-7601. Mark, it is time for the request line here, and we have some great questions that have come in from our listeners. One is from Greg in Vail. Greg says he's being offered an early retirement package from his company that includes a severance package and a pension buyout. And he wants to know if it's wise to consider this.
Well, Greg, thanks for the question. It's certainly wise to consider it. Whether you should do it or not is another question. I mean, we really need to look at all the different factors that are going to go into this. I don't know how old you are, if this is going to be it. If you take this, are you going to be, retired completely, or you're not going to be working any longer, or if you're looking to do something else? We don't know that. And that's the key, is we want to look at all these different factors. Probably look at having a financial plan done if you haven't done so already, to see where you are and where you need to be, to making sure that this is the best deal for you. Giving up a pension is a big deal, but sometimes the buyouts do make sense. But, certainly happy to put our 2 cents in. If you want to reach out to us, be happy to sit down with you and go over that. Or if you're already working with someone, you certainly want to consider what you have, because a lot of times once they do offer you these deals, you don't get them back. So you want to make sure that you're making the best decision you can.
All right. Our next question comes from Diane, who lives in Tucson. Diane says, I'm 55 and I'm worried about the stability of Social Security. Gosh, how many times have you heard that question? She goes on to say, I just don't know if it will be around for the rest of my lifetime. What do you think?
Well, I certainly understand your concerns. I think that the last statistic I heard was, for every one person that's paying in, 3 people are taking out. So it certainly has its issues. But the one thing the government can and will do is print money. And so I think Social Security will be around. What it looks like is going to be different. I'm in my late 40s. And so I can tell you, my starting age, full retirement age right now is 67. Age 67. I see that probably going to 70 or 75 by the time I get to that point. So, I think Social Security will be around. What it looks like, it might be a little bit different. What I think a big mistake is people taking Social Security too early, but in fear that it's going to run out. I think that's a big mistake, because there's taxes that can be due. Sometimes you have to pay it back depending on when you take it. So there's more to it than that. But I certainly understand your concern. If you have specific questions, certainly reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. We have an analysis that we can run which shows you how to maximize your benefit based on what we know now and what the rules are now. Obviously, those rules can and will change. And
if you take Social Security too early, but generally speaking, you're not going to get as much as you will if you wait just a little bit. So, Mark can go over all of that stuff with you and tell you the advantages and disadvantages of taking it early or taking it later, whatever the case may be. Thanks to Diane for that question. One more question today, Mark, from Andy and Marana. Andy says, how much of my portfolio is it okay to have invested in just one stock? I have about $2 million, but almost half of it is invested in one company.
Well, Andy, that's a great question, and we come across this a lot. I'm assuming maybe that the one company is a company maybe you worked for. That's where we see a lot of times where somebody has a large position. Even if it's the greatest company, you want to diversify. You don't want your retirement, your livelihood, and all those sorts of things to be based on the performance of one stock, because anything can trigger that stock to go down. So you want to diversify. I know it's not easy to do, even if the stock has done well, but having half of your position in one stock is very, very risky. You probably want to slowly spread that risk out by diversifying. And we can kind of show you how we've done it for many people. And I know it's a tough one, because a lot of times that stock, maybe it's been in your family a long time. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's a company that you worked for or are currently working for. So there's some value in that. But you don't want to put all of your eggs in basically 2 baskets. your diversified portfolio and then having the rest of it in one stock. But you want to spread out that risk if you can.
Certainly good questions today from Andy and Diane and Greg as well. And there are a lot of other folks out there who have questions. They'd like to come in and get some of those questions answered to your office and just sit down and have a conversation about it. What do you have to offer those folks who come into your door?
Sure, Ron. We've had some great questions, and I just want to remind everybody, if you go to our website, which is savingwithsilverman.com, click on the media tab, there's a place to submit your question. And if you click on that, there's a good chance you'll hear your question here on the air. But now's my chance to ask you a question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with many of my clients. They've become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? And I'll repeat, is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews, but hopefully it's more frequently than that? Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601, or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Easiest thing in the world to do is to procrastinate, to put it off and say, I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week, whatever the case may be. And then you don't really get around to doing it. So why not do it right now? It'll only take a minute. Call and leave a message, or text, and you can leave a message that way or two. Make sure you put your first and last name there, and Mark's office will get back with you. Then you can arrange a time to come in for that no obligation, no cost conversation. 520-333-7601. That puts you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson, serving folks all over southern Arizona. And let me just say, Mark, it's been a pleasure being with you again today.
Ron, always happy to be here. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time to listen.
Join us again next week for the next edition of Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.